It's a very exciting time in cannabis research. The list of conditions which the sacred plant can treat continues to grow. More cannabinoids are being discovered and explored within the plant. Raphael Meshulam and Ruth Galili can tell us a little bit more about research involving CBD for schizophrenia, bone marrow transplants, Crohn's disease, diabetes type 1, and rheumatoid arthritis.
They gave huge amounts of cannabidiol to schizophrenics. And they found that the cannabidiol at these huge levels was as good as one of the well-known drugs that being widely used, with one exception. The drug that's being used now causes side effects, and many of the patients, many of the schizophrenics say, I don't want it because it changes my personality. Cannabidiol does not do that. There is a lot of work in animals, especially in autoimmune diseases. There is a physician who is looking at bone marrow replacement. The body doesn't like to have a bone marrow replaced, and as soon as the bone marrow is replaced, the body attacks the bone marrow, and the bone marrow, the new bone marrow, attacks the body, and the ultimate result is that the patient is sick. This is an autoimmune reaction, namely the body attacks itself, autoimmune. So he started giving cannabidiol, high doses of cannabidiol, and yes, he found that indeed the number of sick patients went down by nearly 50%. This is some of these symptoms in bone marrow replacement are very severe. If you go down 50%, that's a lot. Crohn's is also an inflammatory disease, and we showed quite some time that it works on cannabidiol, CBD, works on inflammation. It works very well on inflammation. We've seen that in rheumatoid arthritis, and we published that with a British group, a very distinguished British group, but that was in animals. Why there have been no clinical trials is beyond me.
Inflammation is really among the more primitive expression of the body to foreign organism invasion. Is the rheumatoid arthritis. The joints are being destroyed by the cytokine, and I try to see if cannabidiol will improve the condition of the disease. And there was a fantastic effect. The destruction of the bone was really disappeared, and many of the inflammatory reactions disappeared. And the animal did not feel pain, and their joints were not swollen, and they could run. And so this was our first demonstration. In rheumatoid arthritis, the CBD, cannabidiol, helps. And I really believe that in human being it will be the same. The second, very quickly, was diabetes type 1.
Diabetes type 1 is an autoimmune disease. For some strange reason, the body attacks the cells that produce insulin, and the body doesn't have insulin, it has diabetes type 1. We found that in animals, in a very closely related situation with humans, if we give cannabidiol, the non-psychoactive compound, only 30% develop diabetes rather than 100%. Will that be true in humans? We don't know. It has not been done yet. Pity, because it's needed.
In diabetes type 1, there is a period in human being, the sugar in the blood increase. And this is a sign that something is wrong there. I believe that when you will give cannabidiol, during this period of time, you will save the people. Their island will produce insulin, and they wouldn't have to take all their life the medication. And we began only in one hospital with 6 or 8 patients, but they were crying when we had to stop because we didn't have money to give them a pure cannabidiol.
You just heard compelling research for using cannabidiol, or CBD, in bone marrow transplants, type 1 diabetes, and rheumatoid arthritis. These scientists see so much potential in their findings, but as you heard from Raphael Meshulam, it is sadly not being followed up by clinical trials. One of the earliest discoveries about CBD was its use as a protective for the brain. In our first episode, we told you that the United States government even holds a patent on CBD as a neuroprotector. Studies have found that CBD can be administered after strokes and head trauma to drastically reduce brain damage. At Hebrew University in Jerusalem, Professor Esther Shohami has studied this extensively.
When Rafi Meshulam got me into the field of cannabinoids, I didn't know much about it, and certainly not about the endocannabinoids that the brain has and what, if it has it, what's its role. And Rafi proposed, he said, look, we have this story of cannabis. We don't know what it does in the brain, but it has to do something. Why won't we look at it? So we had this opportunity when the student came by, knocked on my door and asked if we would like to take him as a PhD student. He was a new immigrant, and found that after traumatic brain injury, there is a marked elevation of the endogenous molecule that the brain produces, which are cannabinoid-like. In Rafi's lab, they have synthesized the same molecule. 1 hour after injury, we treated the mice. To our great surprise and delight, we found that after injecting from outside these molecules, the function of the mice is improved, they are less impaired, they have less edema, which is accumulation of water in the brain, which is one of the most devastating effects of trauma. One of the secondary damage that happens after trauma is inflammation in the brain. And we found that it has many anti-inflammatory properties. So we are not sure exactly how it works, but these molecules are able to induce the endogenous recovery and repair mechanisms of the brain. But the question was, what about the plant? What about the extract of the plant? We didn't work with extracts, but as you know, in Rafi's lab they have synthesized these molecules, and we have tried both THC and CBD, each one of them separately. And better functional outcome was found both with the CBD and with the THC. So if I have to conclude what we know about the role of cannabinoid-like compounds in the brain is they are part of the brain's endogenous neuroprotective mechanisms, and they can be mimicked by molecule from outside, either from the plant or synthetic. We are not a drug company, we are not drug developers and so on, but this is a very important byproduct of our research, because there are no drug for trauma. To date, none of the clinical trial, and there have been several of them, billions of dollars, none of them was successful. So there is no drug that is given to a trauma patient in order to improve their function. And I find that this opens a new horizons, and we hope to come up with new findings in the future.